I'm going to show you how to prepare the perfect steak, talking about the cut, the seasoning and the cooking. Now first of all, when it comes to the cut of meat, you need to know what you're buying. So let's go through the variations that we have. First of all, we've got the fillet. Now this is the premium cut when it comes to steak. It's the sort of thing you'd serve for special occasions and it's very tender, and you often get this as a thicker piece of meat. Next we've got the sirloin, everybody's favourite. It's got some delicious flavour coming from that layer of fat which runs across the back, which can be cut off after it's being cooked. Now next up we've got the ribeye. Now this has a lovely marbling of fat running throughout, giving a superb flavour to the meat. Now this needs to be cooked to medium and not to rare or blue, because it needs to render down that fat, which will make it much more tender once cooked. So here we have the rump, this big piece of meat here, which can be cut down into smaller pieces. Now this is from a harder working part of the body, so it will be slightly tougher, but it can be cooked in the same way as a sirloin. So here we have the picanha, and now this is a muscle which is taken from the rump. It's great on barbecues and it's really nice if it's marinated. It's used a lot in South American cooking. Now this is the bavette, very popular in France. It's got a really open texture to the meat, so it needs to be cooked very, very quickly. It's great for steak sandwiches. Now here we have the flat iron. It's given its name due to its shape and it's very popular in America, and it's something we're going to see a lot more of over here. It benefits from marinating, it needs to be cooked for no more than medium, and it's from the forequarter. Finally, we have what's known as the bistro rump. Now this is a muscle taken from the centre point of the rump. It's very tender and full of great flavour. So these are the cuts of meat. Now we need to talk about the seasoning. When it comes to cooking your steak, a lot of people don't season their steak properly. Now you can be nice and straightforward and use salt and pepper and you get a great flavour to the steak. Or if you want to add some more flavours to it, you can do a marinade, a rub, or even some flavoured butter to serve it with. Now the ingredients for this, we've got some fresh oregano, lemon zest, garlic, dried chilli flakes, and some olive oil. I'll just take some fresh oregano and just strip off the leaves. And we want 2 tablespoons of chopped oregano leaves. Now I'm just going to tip this into a bowl and chop the garlic. And then that goes in with the oregano. And then also we've got some fresh lemon zest, so a really nice tangy flavour goes into this marinade. Now the marinade can be used for any red meat, but particularly on the steak it's very, very tasty, and the longer you leave it, the better the flavour will get onto the actual steak. And you can make this well ahead of time and store it in the fridge or a cool place. You can leave it on the meat for as long as you want to. The longer you leave it, the more intense the flavour will become. And in fact, the marinade itself is great for using on less tender cuts of meat. And you can also use some lemon juice in there as well, because the acid in the lemon juice will cut through the toughness. So that's most of the ingredients in there. We just need to put some dried chilli flakes, add a nice bit of heat, so a teaspoonful into there, and finally some olive oil, 4 tablespoons of olive oil. Give it a good stir around, and then you can leave it in the bowl or transfer it to a nice jar if you're going to store it for some time. So that's the marinade, a really nice easy way to flavour up the steaks. Now something else you can do is a rub. Now this will give you an instant flavour, there's no need to pre-marinate it with the rub, and I'm going to show you how to do a paprika herb one. So the ingredients for this, we've got 1 tablespoon of dried thyme, 1 tablespoon of dried parsley, 1 tablespoon of dried basil, and 2 teaspoons of smoked paprika, and this adds a lovely rich smoky finish to the cooked steaks. Now you simply mix all of these ingredients together. Now this is just an example of some of the flavour combinations that you can do. If there are any particular herbs or spices that you really like the taste of, then have a play and an experiment and mix different things together depending on your tastes and needs. So once it's mixed together, pop it in a little jar and it can stay in your store cupboard for as long as you wish. So that's a delicious rub, and all you need to do is rub it over the top of the meat, and then when you're ready to cook, just pop it in your hot pan. And another way to add flavour to your cooked steak is to make a flavoured butter. Now I'm going to do a thyme and shallot. So we've got 4 ounces or 100 grams of softened butter, some fresh thyme leaves and a shallot. So I'm first of all going to finely chop the shallot. Now flavoured butters are used at the end of cooking. So you can make these with all sorts of different ingredients and herbs. Lemon zest's nice in there, garlic's nice in, and then you can just pop it in the fridge and it's there ready to use whenever you wish. And they're not only very tasty on meat, but you can use them on fish as well. Put the shallot in with the butter, And then just take some fresh thyme leaves, just finely chop. If you've got tougher stalks, then just strip the leaves off to start with. And then add these to the butter. And then just mix this together until everything's combined. So that's a flavoured butter made, but the best way to store this, instead of leaving it in the bowl, is to wrap it in some cling film and make a sausage shape. So get yourself a piece of cling film and then spoon the butter just in the middle and just try and straighten it out a little bit, and then just roll the cling film over the top and then just shape it as you roll it. And then twist the ends. And then when you store it in the fridge, it will firm up. And then you can just slice as much as you want off the piece of flavoured butter whenever you need it. So then you can pop this in the fridge and it's there to use whenever you want to over the next week, or you can pop it in the freezer and it's there to use over the next 3 months. So this just shows you 3 very delicious and easy ways on how to add flavour to a steak. Now when it comes to cooking the steak, there's 3 key points to remember. First of all, remove the meat from the fridge and leave it to get to room temperature before cooking. Doing this allows the muscles in the meat to relax, so when they hit the hot pan, they won't firm up and make a tough cut of meat when it comes to eating it. The next thing to remember is to make sure you have a hot pan right from the start. And while the pan's heating up, season the meat. It's very important that you add the correct seasoning to your meat because it really will make a big difference to the flavour. So add salt and pepper to both sides of the steak. And then just either rub in or brush some oil over the surface. Now by doing this on top of the actual meat, rather than putting the oil into the pan, we'll make sure that it's evenly coating and it will create a really nice caramelised finish over the top of the meat, really sealing in all that lovely flavour. So the pan's nice and hot, we're ready to cook. Now I'm doing sirloin steak and these are about 2.5 centimetres thick. So for a rare finish, you need to cook them for about 2.5 minutes each side. 4 minutes each side for medium and 6 minutes each side for well done. So the steaks had the right amount of cooking time for my chosen finish, but what you may find sometimes, depending on the cut of meat that you use, if you've got some fat on the edge that still needs crisping up, just hold it with your tongs, just so it gets a lovely crisp finish. And then turn off the heat. Okay, now you need to make sure that you leave the steak to rest as well, because this will just help all those muscles to relax and make it really tender. And to add some extra flavour, I'm going to use the thyme and shallot butter, taken from the fridge. Just slice a circle and sit over the top, and then while the meat's resting, this butter will melt over the surface and all the flavour will just sit over the surface of that meat. Cover with some foil just to keep the heat in. And leave to one side. I'm going to serve this with some potatoes and a fresh green salad. So the steaks have rested and they're ready to serve. Onto the plate. And the butter is just melting over the surface and the heat from the steak has taken that initial rawness out of the shallot, and this is how to serve a delicious steak.